They demoted me to a personal assistant and thought they had extinguished me. They didn't know I was the company's largest silent shareholder. And with just one forgotten contract and a check worth $1, I bought everything back and left them with nothing. The security guard's hand pressed firmly against my back as he escorted me to the elevator. The smell of cheap cologne and failure hung in the air as we descended 38 floors in uncomfortable silence. My personal belongings, hastily stuffed into a cardboard box by HR, threatened to spill over the edges. A framed photo of my team, my original team, teetered on top. "Sorry about this, Ms. Morgan," the guard mumbled, avoiding eye contact. I'd known him for years, tipped him every Christmas. Now he couldn't even look at me. "It's Claire, and don't apologize for doing your job. Hector." The elevator chimed as we reached the lobby. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed a gray Cleveland skyline, clouds heavy with imminent rain. Fitting weather for my unceremonious exit from Neural Layer, the company I'd built from nothing. Not just built, created, birthed, nurtured. And now, after being demoted from Chief Strategy Officer to Creative Strategy Assistant, glorified coffee fetcher for the new marketing director, I was being shown the door like a trespasser. I looked back at the gleaming Neural Layer logo in the lobby, a stylized neural network in brushed steel, and felt a familiar burn in my chest. Not heartbreak, not even anger. Determination. Because they didn't know what I knew. They hadn't read what I'd made them sign. "Do you need help with your box to the parking garage?" Hector asked. I shook my head and smiled for the first time that day. "No thanks, I think I've got everything I need right here." And I did. What they didn't realize, what not a single person on that board had realized, was that I was about to use my secret weapon. 9 years earlier, my life couldn't have been further from corporate boardrooms and executive titles. I lived in a rundown apartment in Cleveland's East Side, where the ceiling leaked when it rained and the heating worked about half the time. I was 34 and felt like I was drowning in student loan debt from a computer science degree that had yet to deliver on its promised future. That night, like many others, I sat cross-legged on my second-hand couch, balancing my ancient laptop on my knees, a half-eaten slice of cold pizza on a paper plate beside me. Outside, the city lights blinked through the rain-streaked window as I hammered out code, my eyes burning from staring at the screen for 14 hours straight. I wasn't working on anything revolutionary, just a simple analysis tool for a freelance project to help a local business understand their customer preferences. But somewhere between the third energy drink and 4 a.m., I stumbled onto something. The pattern recognition algorithm I'd been tweaking suddenly showed something unexpected. It wasn't just identifying what products people bought together, it was predicting emotional responses to products based on previous behaviors. It was crude, buggy, and probably just a result of my sleep-deprived brain seeing connections that weren't there. But what if they were? I abandoned sleep altogether that night. By morning, I had the skeleton of what would eventually become Neural Layer's core technology, an algorithm that could predict consumer emotional responses with uncanny accuracy. Not just what people would buy, but how they would feel about it, and what would trigger that purchase on an emotional level. 3 months later, I'd refined it enough to start pitching to local businesses. Most slammed doors in my face, but a regional manager at a Meramart gave me 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes turned into 3 hours as I demonstrated how my algorithm could increase their conversion rate by targeting emotional triggers in marketing. "This is either complete bullshit or you're about to be very rich," he said, leaning back in his chair. I didn't get rich overnight, but I did get my first real client. Amerimart's Midwest division implemented my system, and their sales increased by 22% in the first quarter. Word spread, I moved to a slightly less terrible apartment, hired my first employee, a brilliant data scientist named Maya who believed in the vision enough to take a massive pay cut, and officially incorporated Neural Layer. The next 2 years were a blur of 18-hour workdays, ramen noodles, and the slow, painful birth of a real company. We expanded to 12 employees, moved into our first real office, a converted warehouse space with questionable plumbing, and landed 3 more major clients, What made Neural Layer different wasn't just the technology. It was that we understood both code and people. While other AI startups were busy creating solutions looking for problems, we focused on the most fundamental human element: emotion. Our algorithms didn't just track what people did, they understood why they did it. By year 3, we were profitable. By year 5, we had 60 employees and a client list that included 2 Fortune 500 companies. I'd moved into a decent condo downtown and finally paid off my student loans. Industry publications started calling me the emotion engineer and AI's empathy pioneer. I hated the nicknames but loved that our approach was gaining recognition. Then came the acquisition offers. The first few were easy to dismiss, tech giants wanting to absorb our technology and discard the rest. But TridentWorks was different. They were a massive conglomerate with divisions in everything from healthcare to retail. And they didn't just want our technology, they seemed to want our approach, our philosophy. Their initial offer was generous, $86 million. But I wasn't interested in just selling, I wanted to see my vision through. To grow Neural Layer into something that could truly change how technology understood human behavior. So I made a counteroffer that my lawyer, Victor Lyman, thought was insane. You want to sell your company for $1? Victor's voice cracked as he stared at me across his polished mahogany desk. His office overlooked Lake Erie, the water glittering in the afternoon sun. Claire, I know you're unconventional, but this is career suicide. Not $1 outright, I corrected, sliding the draft agreement across the desk. $1 plus 3 conditions. I retain a significant equity stake. I maintain my executive position with operational autonomy over Neural Layer's core development, and I tapped the document. Clause 19B. Victor adjusted his glasses and scanned the paragraph I'd indicated. His eyebrows shot up. This is creative and potentially unenforceable. But not explicitly illegal. No, not illegal, just aggressive. He looked up. You're essentially creating a trapdoor. If they try to push you out without cause, you can buy back the entire company for $1. I leaned back in my chair. Exactly. They'll never agree to this. Their legal team will spot this immediately. Will they? I smiled. It's buried on page 87 of a 112-page agreement filled with standard legalese. How carefully do corporate lawyers read acquisition agreements for $1 companies? Victor removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. You're betting your entire company on the assumption that high-powered corporate attorneys won't do their jobs thoroughly? I'm betting on human nature. People see what they expect to see. They're expecting standard protective clauses for a founder, not a complete ownership reversal trigger. I tapped the desk with my finger. Besides, it's not as crazy as it sounds. What's the likelihood they'd ever try to push me out? I'm bringing value. As long as I'm valuable to them, this clause is meaningless. Victor sighed, but I could see the slight curl at the corner of his mouth. He'd been my lawyer since I was working out of my apartment, and part of him enjoyed my unorthodox approaches. You think they won't read to line 87? He asked. I think they'll skim line 87, see something about founder protections, and move on. Corporate attorneys are overworked and dealing with acquisitions worth billions. Our little deal is pocket change to TridentWorks. 2 weeks later, TridentWorks agreed to the deal. $1 changed hands. I framed the actual check, and Neural Layer became a subsidiary of TridentWorks. I retained a 38% equity stake. The board members and early employees shared the remaining 12% not acquired by TridentWorks. Maintained my CSO position, and Clause 19B sat dormant in our acquisition agreement. For the first year, everything was wonderful. TridentWorks provided resources I'd only dreamed of: state-of-the-art research facilities, access to massive datasets, and connections to clients we could never have approached on our own. Neural Layer grew from 60 employees to over 200. We moved into a gleaming downtown office with that pretentious lobby and those 38 floors. I was so caught up in the expansion that I missed the early warning signs. Small things, at first. New hires that I hadn't approved. Minor budget reallocations. marketing materials that emphasize features over the emotional intelligence that made our product unique. Then came the second year, and with it, Ethan Bell and Serena Vaughn. Ethan, the new CFO appointed by Trident Works, was an MBA with slicked back hair and cufflinks that probably cost more than my first car. Serena, brought in as chief brand officer, had come from a luxury cosmetics company and spoke exclusively in marketing buzzwords. Neither understood a thing about AI or emotional analytics, but both were experts in corporate politics. The first major change came when Ethan suggested optimizing our R&D department. "We need to focus on monetization pathways," he announced during a strategy meeting, sliding glossy presentations across the conference table. "Our current research initiatives lack clear revenue trajectories." "Our research is what makes us unique," I countered. "The emotional pattern recognition that drives our core products requires continuous refinement." "Perhaps," Serena interjected, "we could pivot the R&D department into more of an inspiration center, something that generates consumer-facing innovations rather than back-end algorithms." I stared at her. "An inspiration center? Our R&D team consists of PhDs in machine learning and cognitive science." "Exactly," she smiled, her perfect teeth gleaming under the conference room lights. "So much untapped creative potential. We could have them design user experience journeys instead." That meeting was just the beginning. Over the next 6 months, I watched as my carefully built team was systematically dismantled. 3 of our best engineers quit after being reassigned to user journey mapping. Our core algorithm development was deprioritized in favor of superficial interface redesigns. The phrase emotional analytics was replaced with intuitive market sensing in all company materials. I fought back. Of course. I brought data showing how our core technology drove results. I reminded them that clients like Amerimart had come to us specifically for our emotional prediction capabilities. I advocated for the engineers and data scientists who were becoming increasingly frustrated. But each time I raised concerns, I found myself more isolated. Meetings were scheduled when I was known to be unavailable. Decisions were made in quick sync-ups that somehow never included me. My access to certain systems was restricted for security protocol updates that never seemed to affect anyone else. The final blow came 9 months ago, during what was billed as a leadership realignment meeting. The entire executive team was present, along with 2 Trident Works board members who had flown in for the occasion. "As we continue to evolve the Neural Layer brand," Serena began, her voice silky smooth, "we're making some adjustments to better reflect our new direction." She clicked to a slide showing a restructured organizational chart. My name, previously under Chief Strategy Officer, now appeared in a small box labeled Creative Strategy Assistant, reporting directly to Serena. "Claire will be transitioning to a specialized role," Ethan explained, not quite meeting my eyes. "She'll be focusing on preserving the company's founding vision while allowing new leadership to expand our market presence." "You're demoting me to an assistant position?" I asked, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "Not at all." Serena's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. "We're elevating you to a vision keeper role. Less administrative burden, more creative freedom. You'll be the face of Neural Layer's heritage." "Its heritage?" I repeated. "The company is 9 years old. I founded it. I built the core technology that this entire business is based on. And we honor that contribution." One of the Trident Works board members said smoothly, "But business needs evolve. Your value as a founding figure remains untouched." That was corporate speak for, "We're keeping you as a mascot." A founding figure to trot out at conferences while stripping me of any actual authority or input. I said nothing else during that meeting. I watched as they outlined my new responsibilities, essentially taking notes for Serena and preparing slide decks for meetings I would no longer attend. I observed as they discussed the exciting new direction for Neural Layer, which seemed to involve turning our sophisticated AI emotional analytics platform into a glorified market research tool with prettier graphics. When the meeting ended, I returned to my office, soon to be Serena's office, and closed the door. Then I did something I hadn't done since my father's funeral. I cried, not loud, dramatic sobs, but silent tears of fury and betrayal. After 10 minutes, I wiped my face, reapplied my makeup, and made a call. Victor, it's Claire Morgan. Remember that crazy clause you thought would never be relevant? I need you to pull the acquisition agreement. That evening, I retrieved my copy of the agreement from my home safe. Page 87, Clause 19B, was exactly as I remembered it. In the event that Claire Morgan is removed from her executive position without due cause as defined in Appendix C, Morgan retains the right to repurchase all Trident Works interests in Neural Layer Inc. for the original acquisition price of $1, $1.00, with such option exercisable within 30 days of said removal. I ran my fingers over the words, feeling a calm certainty settle over me. They hadn't fired me outright. They weren't that stupid. But demoting the founder and CSO to an assistant position would absolutely qualify as constructive dismissal under the definitions in Appendix C, which Victor had carefully crafted. I printed a fresh copy of the clause, wrote out a check for $1, signed it, and placed both in my desk drawer. Then I sent Victor a text with just 4 words. Prepare for activation now. His response came minutes later. Are you sure? This is nuclear. I replied with a single word. Yes. For the next 3 months, I played the role they'd assigned me. I took Serena's lunch orders, prepared slides I knew would never be used, and smiled blandly in the background of meetings where my life's work was being dismantled. I watched as they drove away more of the original team, replaced sophisticated algorithms with flashy but superficial features, and gradually lost the loyalty of clients who had come to us for substance. I documented everything, every role change, every project reassignment, every system access revocation. Victor built the case methodically, ensuring that when we triggered Clause 19B, Trident Works would have no wiggle room. The final act came yesterday. A terse email arrived in my inbox at 3:15 p.m. Meeting update, 4:30 p.m., conference room C. No agenda, no explanation. But I knew. When I entered the room, Ethan and Serena were there, along with someone from HR I barely recognized, and a Trident Works attorney who looked bored. Claire, Ethan began, his voice professionally sympathetic. After careful consideration, we've determined that the creative strategy assistant role isn't providing the value alignment we had hoped for. We've decided to eliminate the position. Serena continued, sliding a folder across the table. This contains information about your separation package, which is quite generous given the circumstances. What circumstances would those be? I asked, not touching the folder. The attorney stirred. Ms. Morgan, Trident Works appreciates your contributions as a founder, but the company has evolved beyond its original scope. This separation is not a reflection on your work, but rather a natural progression of business needs. I almost laughed. They were being so careful not to say they were firing me without cause. They knew that would trigger standard founder protections, but they had no idea about Clause 19B. I understand, I said, keeping my expression neutral. May I collect my personal items? They seemed relieved by my calm acceptance. The HR person accompanied me to my small office, more of a glorified cubicle since the demotion, and watched as I packed the few personal items I kept there. Notably absent was the framed dollar bill from the acquisition, which I'd removed months ago. Hector was called to escort me out. And now here I was, standing on the sidewalk outside the Neural Layer building, clutching my cardboard box as the first drops of rain began to fall. I hailed a cab and gave the driver Victor's address. My lawyer was waiting for me, documents already spread across his desk. Are you absolutely certain? He asked as I entered. Once we do this, there's no going back. They'll fight it with everything they have. They can try, I said, pulling the check from my purse and placing it on top of the formal notice Victor had prepared. But Clause 19B is ironclad, and you've documented every instance of constructive dismissal leading to today's termination. Victor nodded, a small smile playing at his lips. It's almost elegant, really. They were so careful not to outright fire you that they created the perfect paper trail of systematic demotion followed by elimination of a manufactured position. I signed the documents, watched as Victor notarized them, and then sat back as he called his assistant to prepare the package for immediate courier delivery to Trident Works' legal department. "It should arrive first thing tomorrow morning," he said. "What will you do now?" I looked out his window at the Cleveland skyline, at the neural layer building standing tall among the others. "I'm going to get some sleep, and then I'm going to reclaim what's mine." The next morning, I woke to a flurry of missed calls and text messages. Victor had sent me a short video clip, a courier delivering our package to Trident Works' legal offices. The clip ended with a shot of the stunned receptionist reading the cover letter, her eyes widening comically. By noon, my phone was ringing constantly. Ethan, Serena, board members, Trident Works executives. I ignored them all, forwarding their messages to Victor as additional evidence of their panic. At 2 p.m., Victor called. Their general counsel just reached out. They're claiming Clause 19B is unenforceable. "What did you tell them?" I suggested they carefully review Appendix C and the documented pattern of constructive dismissal. I also reminded them that the clause was reviewed and approved by their legal team during the acquisition. He paused. "Claire, they're scared." The Trident Works stock dipped this morning when rumors started circulating about Neural Layer's status. I smiled. "What about our original team members? Have you contacted them?" "Yes, Maya is already on board. So are Jackson, Priya, and Thomas. They're ready whenever you give the word. Tell them to meet me tomorrow at the address I sent you. And Victor? Thank you for believing in me, even when I was just a crazy woman with a laptop and a dream." "Best investment I ever made," he replied, and I could hear the grin in his voice. That afternoon, news of the power struggle at Neural Layer began leaking to industry publications. By evening, it was headline news on tech sites. Neural Layer founder invokes obscure clause to reclaim company for $1. Trident Works PR team issued a statement calling my actions desperate and legally baseless. But markets aren't easily fooled. Their stock continued to slide. The most satisfying moment came when I received a text from Amerimart's regional manager, my first ever client. "Heard what's happening. Just told Trident Works we're pausing our contract renewal until this is resolved. We came to Neural Layer for your vision, not corporate BS." Similar messages followed from other clients, including Genova Health, whose CEO wrote, "Our board has authorized me to inform you that should you regain control of Neural Layer, our contract will be immediately transferred to your new entity." The dominoes were falling faster than I could have hoped. That night, as legal teams battled over the validity of Clause 19B, I met with Maya and the other original team members at a small restaurant downtown. "I can't believe you had an ejection seat built into the acquisition agreement," Maya said, shaking her head in admiration. "That's some serious 4D chess." "I never expected to use it," I admitted, "but I always prepare for worst-case scenarios." "What's the plan now?" Jackson asked. "Even if you win legally, Trident Works has dragged the Neural Layer name through the mud, and they've butchered the original technology. We start over." I said simply. "Not from scratch. We have the original intellectual property rights, thanks to another little clause Victor included in the acquisition. We rebuild around the core emotional analytics engine, but with everything we've learned since then." "And the team?" Priya asked. "I've been getting messages all day from former employees wanting to come back. We'll be selective, but I think we'll have our choice of talent." The following day, as legal proceedings intensified, I signed a lease on a new office space just 2 blocks from the Neural Layer building. It was smaller but had potential, with large windows and an open floor plan that reminded me of our original warehouse space. By the end of the week, Trident Works' legal defense was crumbling. Their own attorneys had failed to identify a critical flaw in their argument. Neural Layer had remained a separate legal entity under the acquisition, meaning the contractual obligations were binding regardless of corporate restructuring. On Friday afternoon, Victor called with the news. "They're caving. Their counsel just proposed a settlement." "What are they offering?" "They'll acknowledge the validity of Clause 19B and your right to reclaim Neural Layer for $1. But they want a non-compete agreement preventing you from working with their existing clients for 12 months. I laughed. Tell them no deal. Clause 19B stands as written. They have until close of business Monday to comply, or we proceed with injunctive relief. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation. Maya and I worked on rebuilding our core systems from backup servers I'd maintained independently. Jackson reached out to our old engineering team, many of whom were eager to return. Priya drafted a press release announcing the rebirth of Neural Layer under its original leadership. On Monday morning, Trident Works surrendered. Their attorneys delivered a formal acknowledgement of the validity of Clause 19B, along with transfer documents returning full ownership of Neural Layer Inc. to me in exchange for the ceremonial $1. I insisted on making the exchange in person. Victor accompanied me to the Trident Works legal offices, where a grim-faced attorney handed over the signed documents. I presented the check with perhaps a bit more flourish than was strictly necessary. I'd like to speak with Ethan and Serena, I said after the paperwork was complete. The attorney looked uncomfortable. Mr. Bell and Ms. Vaughn are no longer with the company. Their positions were eliminated this morning. I allowed myself a small smile. Please extend my sympathies. I know how difficult unexpected position eliminations can be. By that afternoon, I had reclaimed my old office on the 38th floor of the Neural Layer building. The personal items were gone, replaced by Serena's minimalist decor, but the view of Cleveland remained the same. Hector was the first person I saw when I returned to the building. His face lit up with genuine surprise and pleasure. Ms. Claire, you're back. I am, I confirmed, handing him a small envelope containing a holiday bonus 7 months early. And this time, I'm staying. The transition wasn't seamless. Trident Works had done considerable damage to both the company structure and our technology. Many of the new hires, particularly those brought in by Ethan and Serena, resigned rather than work under my leadership. The code bases had been altered in ways that would take months to untangle. But we had something more valuable than perfect code or organizational charts. We had our vision back. Within 2 weeks, we had rehired 28 former employees and secured commitments from 14 of our original clients to return once our systems were back online. I made 2 significant changes to the company structure. First, I renamed it Neural Layer, Redux, a small but important distinction that acknowledged both our history and our rebirth. Second, I created an employee ownership program that distributed 30% of the company equity among the team, ensuring that no single entity, including myself, could ever again have unilateral control over our collective creation. Our new logo featured a phoenix clutching a burning $1 check in its talons, a not-so-subtle reminder of our unlikely resurrection. 3 months after reclaiming the company, I received an invitation that brought everything full circle. The World AI Forum, which had previously relegated me to a minor panel participant while giving Serena a keynote slot, now wanted me as their featured speaker. The day of the conference, I stood backstage, feeling a flutter of nervousness that I hadn't experienced in years. Maya appeared at my side, handing me a bottle of water. Packed house, she noted. Every tech publication is here. Even Trident Works sent representatives. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Gluttons for punishment? More likely trying to save face. Their stock hasn't recovered. Maya squeezed my arm. Knock 'em dead, boss. The lights dimmed as I was introduced. Walking onto the stage, I was momentarily blinded by the spotlights. But as my eyes adjusted, I could see the sea of faces, industry leaders, tech journalists, former competitors, and, in the front row, my original team. Thank you for that kind introduction, I began. My name is Claire Morgan, and I'd like to tell you a story about failure, resilience, and the power of reading the fine print. Laughter rippled through the audience. 9 years ago, I was living in a rundown apartment with a leaky ceiling, eating cold pizza and coding through the night. That night, I stumbled upon what would become Neural Layer's core technology, an algorithm that could predict emotional responses to stimuli with unprecedented accuracy. I walked them through the journey, the early struggles, the growth, the acquisition by Trident Works, and the subsequent dismantling of everything we'd built. They replaced our research department with an inspiration center, I said, using air quotes and earning knowing laughs from the tech veterans in the crowd. They diluted our sophisticated emotional analytics into intuitive market sensing. And eventually, they demoted the founder and chief architect of the company's core technology to a creative strategy assistant, which is corporate speak for get me coffee while we dismantle your life's work. The audience was silent now, riveted. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to check, was that buried on page 87 of our acquisition agreement was a clause that allowed me to buy back the entire company for $1 if I was ever removed from my position without cause. I paused, then reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small frame containing the original $1 check from the acquisition. This is the dollar they paid to acquire Neural Layer. I set it on a small table beside the podium. Then I reached into my other pocket and removed a second frame, the $1 check I'd used to buy it back. And this is the dollar I paid to reclaim it. The crowd erupted in applause and laughter. The moral of this story isn't about revenge, though I won't deny there's satisfaction in that aspect. It's about protecting what you build. It's about understanding that in business, as in code, the details matter. The things people overlook, the comments in your codebase, the clauses on page 87, often make all the difference. I picked up both framed checks. Neural Layer. Redux isn't just a reboot of a company. It's a testament to the power of preparation, to the importance of building teams rather than just products, and yes, to the value of reading contracts all the way to the end. The audience rose in a standing ovation as I held up the frames side by side. Never underestimate the woman who wrote the contract you couldn't be bothered to read. The applause was deafening. As I walked off stage, I caught sight of two Trident Works executives slipping out a side door. I smiled to myself, knowing they would return to their board with the unavoidable truth. They had lost not just a valuable asset, but the respect of an entire industry. Later that evening, as we celebrated with the team at a restaurant overlooking the city, Maya raised her glass in a toast. To Claire Morgan, the most expensive dollar Trident Works ever saved. Everyone laughed and clinked glasses. As the night wore on and the team shared stories of the old days and plans for the future, I found myself stepping away to the restaurant's balcony for a moment of quiet reflection. The Cleveland skyline glittered before me, the Neural Layer building prominent among the towers. Tomorrow, workers would begin replacing the signage with our new logo. Next week, we would launch our rebuilt platform with capabilities that surpassed even our original vision. I thought about the journey, from that leaky apartment to this moment, and felt a deep sense of completion. Not finality, but rather the closing of one chapter and the exciting opening of another. Ms. Morgan? A server appeared at my side. There's a call for you at the front desk. Someone named Victor Lyman says it's important. I smiled, wondering what new adventure my lawyer was about to propose. Tell him I'll be right there. As I walked back through the restaurant, past the laughing faces of my team, my family, really, I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together. We had been broken apart and reassembled, stronger and wiser than before. They had demoted me to assistant and thought they had extinguished me. They didn't know I was the company's largest silent shareholder. And with just one forgotten contract and a check worth $1, I had bought everything back and left them with nothing but a very expensive lesson about the dangers of underestimating the woman who wrote the contract they couldn't be bothered to read.